Welcome to the We Leaders podcast, where leaders share how to leave a legacy that makes history. I'm your host, Alana Fulvio. As a 13-time world record-holding skydiver and Olympic development athlete, psychic intuitive, and former Silicon Valley in-house talent advisor for some of the most legendary leaders and successful companies in history, there is a new bar being set for leadership. They're called We Leaders. What this means for you on this show, We Leaders will show up for you and bring their unapologetic truth, most successful strategies and mindsets so you can level up. We share from our shoes so you can walk in them. Here, the only rules are authenticity, respect, and being in service of every human having the lives they want. Join the movement. Welcome to the We Leaders podcast. Now let's go make history. I am so excited for today. I have been introduced to someone who's incredibly magical within this world, Rockson. Sorry, let me start that over. Hi, welcome to the Profitable Leaders Summit. I'm so excited for today. You're not going to want to miss this. Stay till the end. I promise you, you're going to get more out of it than just learning about what profitability means within business, within your life, but also you're going to be hearing from someone who is an incredible leader, has an incredible story, and not only is going to share that story and how he's become a leader in not only the United States, but in the world. And he really focuses on diversity and culture, and not just within the hiring realms, but also within the world, and how you can make a difference by using your difference, because we're all unique, which I think is incredible, because a lot of times we wonder whether or not we have that magic to offer the world, and if our difference is going to make a difference. And you're not going to want to miss this story. So Tayo Rockson is my new friend, and he's absolutely amazing. I call him glass running over because he's so positive and he sees the good and magic in anything. So if you want to learn some of this and have some magic at the end, take note. He's an author of this book, and Use Your Difference. He's also a 4-time TEDx speaker. Right there. Use your difference to make a difference. So you're going to want to lean into that. 4-time TEDx speaker. He's a D&I consultant. And he's really altering the state of business, but not just business, but personal lives too, because I really think it stems from business and travels out into lives. And he's going to talk about that. So watch until the end. And also he's going to give you some nuggets of gold and a free offering at the end. So welcome, Tayo. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I'm so excited for you to share your story.
No, thank you for having me, Alana. This is great. I'm humbled and honored to be here celebrating with you. This is a great platform. Congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm honored to be doing this, to bring your voice to the world more than you already have, because you're absolutely outstanding at that. So yeah, let's dive into that. I remember when you shared with me your story, and it's so interesting. One thing I'll say to everyone watching is when you meet someone, humans will assume or assume we know about someone or how they got to where they got. And I don't know if you as a leader out there will think, God, I have such a backstory and I've done, whatever. When you meet someone, really be open to where they've come and how they've gotten there. So I want Tayo to share that. I want you to share how you got to where you got, because it's not just you were born and you woke up one day and you walked onto the TEDx stage and went, hi, I'm here. You actually have this incredible story and what shaped you to become also the person that you are. So share that. I would love that.
Okay, so it's a long story, but here we go. So I'm Nigerian. So some of you might recognize from my name, some of you might not. But I was born in Nigeria, and the first 9 years of my life was spent in and out of military dictatorship. Now, this was before Nigeria transitioned to civilian rule. But I also grew up in 5 countries and 4 continents. And I did this by the time I was 17, 18. And I remember initially, when you go from the juxtaposition of the dictatorship to then traveling back and forth because of your dad's job. My dad was a diplomat. You inevitably have an identity crisis. And for me, I was always trying to figure out who I was. I was this curious, passionate, childlike person who was always interested in figuring out how to fight for moral justice because of the dictatorship. But then I didn't quite know how to express myself in between, you know, amongst all these worlds rather. And so I was never quite, you know, Black enough or Nigerian enough or this enough. And I would be going in and out. And I remember in places where everybody was different, I felt different. And that led me, you know, to look inward. And I started writing. You know, I started writing when I was in boarding school, actually, and I would just express myself, you know, feelings of sadness, of joy, whatever. And I remember coming to a decision when I was 17. That was right around the time my dad got posted to Vietnam, and I was going to move to United States at the same time for college. And I said to myself, I've got to be comfortable with who I am. And I have to understand that it's multiple people at the same time, because I was now going to go to college. And I said, I can't keep doing this thing where I have to like be this version of that, because it was starting to wear on me. So I said I was going to be this guy who was simultaneously into sports, but also emotional. I was that nerd jock guy. I played sports, but I was very nerdy, and no one understood what would come out of my mouth. But like, how can you like that? And I started to become comfortable with that. And then I came to America, and when I came to America, I got involved with every single thing I could. I joined all the clubs, you know, like the African club, the Black club, the marketing club. I was just like, freedom, expression. I was like, I can do things. and I felt, you know, I was like, you know, I have a marketing degree, I have a business degree, and a French minor. I can do something maybe like my dad in international relations, or in international relations and marketing. And then it came time to apply. And so I applied for jobs, you know, over 85 jobs, and all of them said no. You know, I'm not a citizen. We don't sponsor. You're too idealistic. What the role that you're applying for, you know, you don't have enough experience for it. And you know, if you're not a citizen, there are 3 legal ways to stay in America. You either get a job, you get married, or you go to school. I just graduated from school, and they give you 1 year. Yeah, they give you 1 year to find a job. It's called, your OPT. And you have to then convince a company to sponsor you. And then when the company sponsors you, they put you in this lottery system for the H-1B, and you're still not guaranteed the visa, because it's multiple people applying for the visa at the same time.
I mean, hundreds and thousands.
Hundreds and thousands. You're exactly right. And so I was now panicking, so I freaked out. I went to everybody that had given me an internship before. I said, look, I need something, you know, any opening. And and that was around the time of Twitter, and Twitter was just started, and social media was just becoming a thing. So, you know, the company that hired me said, hey, you know, we're hearing about this social media thing. You seem to have a lot of followers on your Twitter. Maybe there's something there. And so they hired me for that. I had to pay them to sponsor me, because they said, we want to sponsor you, but you have to send us the money, the $5,000. So I was like, fine, I have to find $5,000 to pay for this lawyer fee. So sent it, they sent the check, and I was like, okay, great. And I was waiting on pins and needles. They gave me the acceptance offer, and I eventually, my visa went through. I was like, yes, I made it. I got the lottery. I was very lucky. And so you would think the story would end there, because as a Nigerian, and when you come from the type of culture I come from, you know, you're like, you go to America, you make it, forget it. You need to make money. That's status. Your status is good. I don't want to hear anything about your passion and your dreams. I just need you to make money. And so I got into this job. They quickly switched my role from marketing to sales. I had no orientation, and I had to figure out how to make $10,000 a month. This was my quota. And so ultimately it helped me in the long run, but I hated it there. And I was like, well, this isn't even what I wanted to do. But I eventually got a hang of it, and I was stretching, you know, a job that I could do in 2 or 3 hours for 8 hours. And I just found myself going through the motion. I was now in a town that I didn't enjoy. I was in a job I didn't enjoy, and I was dealing with my mind and the internal battle of, I thought I was going to be this guy that was going to do all these big grand things, and here I am in a small town having to accept what this is, and it's because of my visa status and my citizenship. And then August 22, 2012 happened. I was driving in my burgundy Toyota Camry at the time. I was in Virginia at the time. And then that's when I haven't driven in a long time, but that I used to drive. And then I got to the part where the road merged into the highway, and then I cruised, into my lane, 60 miles an hour like I was supposed to. And then all of a sudden my lane gets cut into half. This Navan car loses control. And so I swerve out of the way so I don't get hit. And I smash into the left guardrail. Boom, one car, boom, two cars. And then back to the left guardrail, right guardrail, boom. And it hits it with such impact. The car lifts up. It's like perpendicular, about to flip over this bridge. And I'm saying to myself, 22 years old, have you done everything that you said you were going to do at least?
Wow.
That was the voice in my head. And simultaneously, you obviously try. Yeah, I know. And simultaneously, you're obviously trying to be alive too. So I was like, adrenaline was kicking in and splashing the brakes. And I somehow managed to get out of the car. And the car was unscathed. I mean, the car was not unscathed. The car was totaled, but I was unscathed. There were two other cars hit. And I couldn't believe I had survived that. I shouldn't have survived that. The car was just a mess. Yeah. And I was 22. And at that point, I realized that I needed to quit my job because my biggest fear up until that point was failure. And now at that point, it was not achieving my potential. I was this kid who was going to bridge culture divides, whose role model is the late Nelson Mandela and Oprah Winfrey. And here I was in a job I hated in a town I didn't want to live in. Wow. And I accepted a fate, and I wasn't even 30. And so I decided to make some changes. So I'm going to put a pause there, see if you have any questions.
No, that last thing that you said was absolutely powerful in terms of the mind shift set. It's super clear what you're talking about. And I love hearing the story again, because it inspires me right now, again, in my way. And this is why I wanted you on here, because every moment that we talked, you inspired me. And right now, it's having me look at myself again, is saying, wow, how can I live versus worry about failure, so beautiful.
Well, no, thank you. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I had to take ownership because I had given into the stories that were there. You're not a citizen. This is the only way you can stay here. You don't have any other options. You can't dream. You already have a job. Don't be ungrateful. And so, when you're faced with your mortality, your mind starts to shift, because you then start to just ask yourself these life-altering questions. What is it that you want to do? Are you doing what you want to do? And so after that, I decided that I was going to move to New York City, because I had taken a trip once there, and it was always the backdrop of like my favorite shows or anything. And so I felt alive. There was an energy I connected to when I came to New York City, and I said, I have to get here somehow. And so, like I said earlier, school, work, marriage, I said I was going to go to school. And this did a couple of things. It helped my parents see like, oh yeah, so my son is graduating to another level. We're going to MBA, getting his master's. And so I was like, yeah, okay. And I also wanted to do it, but then it gave me a chance to explore the city and figure out whatever I was going to do for 2 years. So I applied, got a bunch of no's. Seriously, I got a bunch of no's. And then the school I even got to Fordham, which is, I love Fordham, and they conditionally accepted me because I had a good GPA, I had a high GPA, but my GMAT was low. And I was like, you know what, I'm not conditioned, whatever. I'm coming in anyway. So I moved and I surpassed the condition. They told me that I needed to take 2 classes. I think it was statistics and something else, to see if I can meet the criteria. And I just took 5 classes, I think. And then I got a 3.9 or something. And I went to the lady and I said, hey, look, I did the thing. And she said, I only told you to take 2 classes. And I said, well, here we go. And so they lifted the condition. And I in my head, I wanted to graduate in 2 years. I didn't want to do this
right.
Yeah. So I'm very stubborn. So that set me off to making New York City my campus. Fordham has this logo where they say Fordham is your school, New York is your campus. And that's exactly what I did. New York City was my campus. And 2014, I decided to launch my podcast because I was now just going to just try things regardless of how many times I failed. And the podcast premise was why do we live in a world that is so disconnected, and many people, look like they're not supposed to sound or sound like they're not supposed to look? How can we bridge these divides? And I started to come across this term which I am described as a third culture kid, a TCK.
Hmm.
And it basically refers to people that spent the formative periods of their lives outside of their parents' cultures. So army brats, diplomatic kids, missionary kids, people that just were in and out of different parts. So they have their culture, the mix of of the cultures they've all been in, and their parents' culture. Those are the three cultures.
Interesting.
And I brought them on. I that was the premise of the podcast. August 2014 is when I launched. I just celebrated the 500th episode. And
Yeah, beautiful. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And my goal was to teach people how to embrace a global identity. And that's what I hope the audience is listening. So first, you decide what you want to become, make a decision on that, and stay consistent. But then follow your curiosity. So I was curious about how our identities. I said I had an identity crisis before, and I started to own it. How can we own more of our stories? And in the process of bringing on people like myself who grew up in different parts of the world, I started to get more confident expressing myself, but I also started to notice themes and different things. And then in addition to that, I built a community of people. I started having people reach out to me from emails saying, hey, I'm older than you. I'm like 60, I'm 14, whatever, different range. I thought I was alone. I didn't realize there were other people who were like me. I remember one of the first emails I got was someone who was married. It was an interracial marriage, and she was just depressed. And she said one of the stories in the episodes really helped her find herself, and she just wanted to thank me for that. And that was the first time I was getting thanked for anything. You got to understand, I'd been used to so much rejection at this point, whether it's schools and all these things, and I'm like, wait, I'm doing something right. And so
you're like, check to win. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then so it gave me this clue, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to go for any recruiting trips. So I started, which is a very big risk if you're going to an MBA program. And so I just started to really hone in on my craft and this podcast and focus in the community. And so I started learning about different ways to express yourself in between different cultures. And then I realized, hey, the stuff that I was doing when I was a kid and writing about when I was in high school and still writing on my blogs are actually things that a lot of companies and individuals are struggling with. Like, why can't you systemize that and start learning how to do that? And I would incorporate that in the episodes. Then someone sends me an email from the World Bank and says, hey, have you thought about speaking? We want to invite you to come speak to some of these kids who grew up the same way you did, the diplomatic kids. And I never thought about being a speaker. At least I thought about it, but not that quickly. I was like, I'm just doing a podcast.
Right.
And I said, sure. I mean, I'll get over there. We don't pay much. It's the World Bank, whatever. I'll come. And I did it. And I realized that I had a knack for it. And then that opened my mind to multiple things. So then the podcast then became an opportunity to speak as well as tell my story on multiple platforms. And then I was doing odd jobs in between. And then I got fired once. I was like, oh, gosh. Like, God, what's happening to me? I thought I had a thing.
Another.
Yeah, more. And then it came time for me to graduate. And then and then it's the same deal. You got to figure out how to get a visa to stay in the country. And you have 1 year. And my mentor, who ironically is the one that hired me in Virginia, now in New York, it says, hey, I've been watching your rise. I love how you tell your story. You've done a good job of branding yourself. I'm leading a startup here. It's based on education, but I feel like there's some intersection. And in my head, I'm like, yes, we can make this work.
Oh, yeah.
And I also knew that I didn't want to do the same visa. I didn't want to have an H-1B visa because it tied me to one job. Right. And I knew that I would be figuring things out. And again, I don't know where I had these audacity to think I have options. I'm not a citizen. I'm saying, no, I don't want this visa. I want this visa. And I'm thinking, I don't know. And then randomly, I was doing a photo shoot for my podcast because someone that liked the story, and then the podcast was starting to really grow. And so people were like, we want to cover your story. And the lady interviewing me says, have you thought about the O1 visa? I said, I don't even know what the O1 visa is. And she says it's for, a lot of actors use it, but also if you're not an actor or a producer, or a creative, it's, for, they call it the aliens with extraordinary abilities. That's what, you have to have something extraordinary. And I said, no, but I will go back to my lawyer and ask. And so I went to my lawyer, and my lawyer promptly said, you do not qualify. There's nothing that you have that will give you this merit.
No, you're like,
Well, there we go. And so I asked her, hey, can you refer me to your lawyer? And her lawyer says, look, I've seen people with less than what the lawyer didn't get in, and people with more not get in. You, with your company, there's not enough yet, but if you can get another company to sponsor you, it'll be good. And then my boss had that offer. I was like, you know what, Rob, let's do this. let's work. I think there's an opportunity here for me, you, and this visa. Because I told him I was sorry. He said, okay, good. I'll help you with the visa and all that. And if we can give you multiple employers. Turns out that was what I needed, because by myself I wasn't seen it extraordinary yet. And so I got in, and I was doing the 9 to 5, and then 5 to 9. We didn't quite find the match that we thought we had, because they were going a different direction. So I still had to do my multiple things. And then eventually he called me in to fire me. We're still cool. I mean, he jokes like, I had to let you go to do your thing. And he said, look, it's just not working out. I had gotten the visa then for 3 years, and I was still under my company as well. So I was good visa-wise, not good money-wise or rent-wise or anything-wise. Right. I said, Rob, what am I going to do? He says, well, if you are really passionate about what you're going to do, you're going to figure it out. And it seemed very harsh at the time. I was like, oh, gosh, what's going to happen? But I did. I just went back home. I put everything that I had done. I had spoken in the World Bank. I have a popular podcast. I've done a few speaking engagements here. I said, I'm going to craft my story and just take the leap. Reach out to HR, reach out to people that I know need my services. So we spend most of our lives in schools and education, in schools and workplaces. So reach out to deans in schools and reach out to officers in companies. And I said I needed something external to brand me outside of that. And that was TEDx. And so I started just doing all these, spending my days reaching out, hey, I want to do a free workshop for you in exchange referral and testimonial. And then, hey, TEDx, this is what I'm happening. This is also the time of the election. So Trump had just gotten elected, and it was a crazy time. Yeah. And so I now started to get inbound links as I was reaching out to people, because people are now looking for ways to bridge divides, and my articles were ranking. And the good thing is, by the way, people listening, this is why you stay consistent. It wasn't just one thing they were finding a bunch of other things, like, this guy, he wrote this, he wrote that. It's very good that whenever that one thing hits, you have something else that goes there. So one of the companies eventually said, yes, we like your thing. I started to film some of these things. And then TEDx, as I was applying, they weren't responding. Then I followed up one more time with all the places I applied to. And then 2 of them said yes to the same talk. And then I was like, this is good. This is a good problem. Oh gosh. So I had to come up with another talk for that. And then, and then the tsunami started to hit. It was as soon as I started to get one company to say yes, and the podcast started to go. And then eventually TEDx said yes. Then those 2 became my first 2. Yeah. And then the other 2 became people had heard about me, and they reached out to me. And then that's how it happened. So It's a long, windy road.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
It's amazing. What do you, and I have other questions too, but it's a long, windy road. And, there's this diagram that says humans think that life goes like this, zoop, and we know it's always like this, right? Yeah. And I think that's what builds, that's, who you are today. If you had just gone in a straight line, you wouldn't be who you are today, what you're sharing today, and how you help people today. Because you had to live it, you had to walk it, and when you see others getting the no's and not living their truth, like, you get it, that's the beauty of it. So the other thing, the big thing, which I think is a huge thorough through your life, which I think is magnificent. I'd love for you to share what that nugget of gold is. So what I saw in your life every time, like when you had that first job and the moment you clicked and you decided to move to New York, because you always had that option.
Yeah.
But something with the accident, etc., because it's pretty typical for us, right? It's right there, but we choose one way or the other. And you, after the accident, made a real clear choice. You made a real clear choice, or you later down the road, your MBA. I'm going to make a real clear choice, or, you know, to go, I need to get another job to keep that visa. You just made a choice. And it's interesting because if we don't think we're making a choice, we're making a choice.
That's right. That's right.
When we think we're doing nothing, we're actually making a choice. But
Yep.
I think what can you share, like what headspace, or what, besides, let's say, the accident aspect, take out like this thing that happened, what was it that had you shift from going from one to the next to making those decisions for you? Because you went from here, which is okay, to here, and just moving into life, and you've done that over and over and over again, which is why now people are hunting you down. Like myself, you know, I heard about you and I thought, I want this person in my life.
Thank you.
And you're staying true to yourself.
Yeah.
And you've done that consistently.
Well, the nugget I'll share is there has to be some sense of deep, radical self-awareness. And so this is the thing. Life is about, you know, who you are and who you want to be. It's about getting from who you are to who you want to be. And a lot of times, many people, they you know, they think they know who they are, or they stop trying to figure out who they are, and they start accepting other people's versions of who they are. And then they forget about this path. And so every time, before the accident, any of those things, the thing that I'd always been curious about, even if you don't have a clear vision of who you are, there are things you're curious about, and you have to follow that curiosity. I was always curious about people feeling like themselves and creating spaces for that, because I personally went through things where people were trying to make me into something else. And so for me, whether it's with the dictatorship or whether it's going in and out, for some reason, I was always curious about that. Even with my love for sports, it's I know, even investigating my love for sports, it's the work, the teamwork, the camaraderie, the fact that you can work with multiple people to one goal. That was something there. And so I encourage people to truly understand what their passions are, what they like, what they don't like, what they go on rants and raves about, and even to go deeper than that, to ask themselves multiple levels of why. Why do you like these things? Why do you hate these things? What about that really brings that out? And that gives you insight into things that you might enjoy. Now, if you don't have the clarity, the more you do things you enjoy, the more things will come out to you. As I was doing the podcast, as I got into accidents, I realized I need to change my environment. So I changed my environment to be more inspired. And then I got inspired. I was listening to podcasts. I said, well, why don't I do a podcast after I listened to Ariana Huffington at one event? Then I was doing my podcast. Someone says, hey, why don't you speak? As I was speaking, and then you get fired. You're like, wait, why don't I consult? And so it's, people will give you ideas the more you're doing things that you enjoy. And so that's why I always say it's very important to continue to do the work to understand who you are and what you like to do, but to never take that for granted, because that's where everything will come out of, no matter how frustrating it seems when it's unclear and it's murky.
Yeah. And I identify with that frustration too. And I identify with the kind of the birthing of self and the rebirthing of self, right?
Oh my gosh.
You know, it's being a founder, being, you know, staying true to yourself and not thinking that you need to fit into that box like you were talking about, or the shoulds, or what people think. Like, I've had people say to me, well, why don't you just go back to X? And I thought, because the last time someone said that to me was this last year, and she goes, just go back to being a recruiter. And I thought, we need absolutely amazing recruiters in this world, but my soul will die. And the reason, like you mentioned, is like the systemization and the bigger, like your reach is not one company, one person, it is global, right? Yeah. And so you stay true to yourself, where you put yourself in situations where, like you say, sit there. And I think that's a magical thing. And people truly do, not just fly by night, write it down, like really sit with yourself and get uncomfortable. And one thing that I've learned is when I start to negotiate my way out, because it's really easy for the brain to do, negotiate my way out of, oh, I can't have that, or maybe I can't do that, is, like you said, go deeper, go why, stay true to yourself. And so what I think you're saying is incredibly, incredibly valuable for people to do. And it's just, it's amazing. And look at where you are now. I mean, and it keeps going, you know?
Well, you know, the thing is, you have to have the courage to be yourself. And I'm saying you have to have the courage to be yourself because many people will tell you that you're not realistic. It doesn't matter. It doesn't work. I can't, I mean, we're just sharing my story. I can't tell you how many times people told me it's not going to work. I come from this place. You come from this place. You're too young. You're too this. I've heard everything. I still hear it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think like an athlete in that way, where I have like this chip in my shoulder. I'm like, oh, but, but,
Me totally.
but it's very important that because if you don't have a strong sense of self, when someone keeps telling you that you can't do something, you will believe them. So.
Right. Right. And progress was never made by people doing the same thing over and over again in history, right? I mean, uh, you know, yeah, the progress of the world, the progress of humans as connection, like you said, community, you know, self-love, self-driven and innovation. And I use the word, you know, it's kind of overused, but progress is not made by people, you know, staying the same and being comfortable in a box. So I think, yeah, what you're saying is
Oh, thank you.
incredible. Yeah, and hence why I'm going to go back to what I call you, which is glass running over guy, literally like right over, because and I even learned more on this, which was, you know, we talked about your story, but I even got more for myself out of this, which was so much of, you know, when I'm confronted, because it's a, well, why are you doing that? Or you can't, you know, can't change. And I think people come from their own comfort zone. And we have to check ourselves with our own comfort zone, but go beyond. Like I call it jumping into the unknown. Like just jump. Like you just jump. You jumped so many times and you weren't sure, but you wanted something bad enough where you're willing to risk, not risk failure, but risk not having like your own life, your own success. So, which is why I call you glass running over guy, because really it's so inspiring what you've done. And and all the greatness is coming to you. The world needs, which is why I wanted to also have you come and share. And I think a lot of people that'll be watching this too will understand that journey of confrontation with self, confrontation from outward stimulus in terms of what the world wants you to be, and just to keep going. You know, believe in yourself. And if not, like you said, community, call someone that does, or call someone that will. Call me, like, give us a ring. If you don't believe in yourself in the moment, just call us. We will remind you of your greatness. And that's one reason I wanted to bring him on here too, is because just in our conversation, he reminded me of my greatness, even though he didn't say that outward, which is fine. But I was like, oh yeah, reminds me of to be my truth. So so anything else in terms of that story? Anything else you want to finish up on or anything? No. All right.
No, yeah. That's the core. That's the core of it. Yeah.
I love it. So besides all those nuggets of gold that they already have, anything else that you want to leave them with? Anything else so through the lens, right, of the profitable leader, because we're, you know, the lens of the profitable leader, profitability. That's why I didn't want to define it too much in the beginning, because profitability, people see it as financial, and actually profitability can be financial, but it's actually one living their own true life, trueness, profitable. You're profitable in your life if you're living your truth, right? If you stayed with, I have to do a sales job because that's what I'm told to do and that's the right thing to do, you wouldn't be profitable within your own self.
Yeah.
And then proven business growth is really focused on look what's worked in the past, look what you've done in the past, do that again. And then you mentioned teams, right? Is building cultures of teams around you, and support mechanisms and support groups.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, if you think about profit, look, every time you're trying to make money or grow mentally, physically, financially, it's an investment in yourself, whether it's, you know, you're lifting weights, whether it's you're adding knowledge, or whether it's you're selling something or your brand. And so anyone listen to this, whatever your brand is, if you make the investment of understanding your story and surrounding yourself in an environment that challenges you in a good way to even be that best version of yourself, it will serve you, because you're going to be more innovative. And I want to say this within the context of what's happening with COVID-19 and the world. You know, there are multiple things that are happening. Many people are affected. You might even have multiple jobs. As a mom, you know, have maybe a daycare, or dad, you're also doing daycare, and then you're a parent, and then you're a colleague, and all those things. Always take time to listen to your body and yourself and your mind. Maybe if it's it's like the beginning of the day or the end of the day. find the time to listen to what your mind and body are saying,
Yeah.
and then figure out what it is that you've left on the table. You know, a lot of times, now that a lot of things are shut down, you're going to come to terms with things that maybe you thought you could push off till
Mm.
later on. Those things that you are pushing off, I can guarantee you, the more you do them, the more yourself you become, and the more ideas will spring out. You know, people talk about ideas coming in from the shower randomly, all those spontaneous moments, is because that's when our brain finally has some time to rest. But if you actually make it more intentional, where you're like, okay, let me just sit down and clear up mental space and figure out what I need to do
Yeah.
by doing what I want to do, you're going to get there. And that connects to profitability, because you're going to find holes that you can fill in.
Yeah.
And you're also going to maybe figure out who is the better teammate with
100%.
that. Yeah.
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 And I think that's a great point too, because I know that as a founder myself, as et cetera, sometimes I have to stop myself and really intentionally give myself time to take that break. Because even in the shower, I'll be thinking, and innovating,
Yeah, you're
you
like
know,
me.
and go, and different thoughts, and what do I have to do? But it's true, when I take that moment, like you said, and it's self-love, it's self-care, and it's allowing ourselves to, I think, to your point, what I got was sensing what's working and what's not, like what I'm
Yeah, being
inspired by,
honest.
do that, and what's not, figure out either how to do less or not that, but figure
Yeah,
it out, like stay with your truth.
stay with the truth.
You know,
Create your boundaries. Create your boundaries. Stay with your truth. Be honest with yourself. Don't apologize for being yourself.
yeah.
So
Yeah, which
yeah,
is amazing. And one thing that you talk about with use your difference to make a difference, I always say in the world, you know, be the difference,
yeah,
be the difference. And to your point, and one of the last things that we'll just mention is, I would say be the difference in the world, but like you're mentioning, be the difference to yourself first. Because the only way that you're going to be able to make whatever impact you want to make as a leader, as a hopeful leader, as whomever you are in this world, business, personal, if you give inside first, if you're the difference for yourself, like you're mentioning, like when you took that risk and moved to New York, and you didn't let others say, oh, you should just do that job. You were the difference for yourself first, which is why you've gone to where you are right now, which I would assert, and you can deny or accept that you're happy now and you're still thriving and you're still moving forward, but you're proud and happy of yourself for what you've done and where you are right now.
I am. It's something that I'm definitely working on with my therapist. She's always like, just be present, be present, be present.
That's me too.
Yes, I'm happy because I'm doing what I want to do, and it's on my own terms.
Yeah.
And it took a long road for me to even, get there, because I used to make a lot of apologies for being myself. How I have the caveats ready, like this or that, and then I just realized that it's fine. I'm not for everybody. That's okay. But as long as I'm happy with myself,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's fine. So
And that's a big one too for anyone that's watching is, and I actually our conversation a couple weeks ago had me get really present to where I was hiding from the world.
mm,
And I knew I was hiding in the world. And actually it's a greatness, and a few things are amazing greatnesses. And I thought, and you had me think without maybe knowing why am I not,
huh,
why am I hiding that part? So honestly, like this conversation, this interview, etc., is real and live. And since our connection, which hasn't been years that we've known each other, it was a connection through a referral. So you never know who you're going to meet. You never know someone's story. Someone can say one thing to you, and since our connection a couple weeks ago, it's impacted my life. Where actually, I've changed how I say things, what I say, and I'm saying things that I was hiding in the world that are actually greatnesses that other people thought, oh, you're just nuts for saying that. And I thought, you know what? I just learned something from my conversation with him. And so I acknowledge you for showing up that way, and for yourself first, obviously, and what you do in the world, because it's really, and if people can embody that, imagine this world. Imagine how amazing a world of people that, like you said, are being the difference for themselves, and then they get to impact others.
thank you. No, I really appreciate that, and I hope the world starts to see that. So here's to hoping.
Yeah, yeah. Well, follow him for sure, because anything he does, I swear you will, even if it's 2 words, you'll be inspired, or you most likely I was, and nuggets of gold and just things that you can take in and ask yourself. And like I said, it's not like he's had a straight life, line. There's been stuff, and we all have stuff, but you can do it. So I want to acknowledge and thank you so much for sharing this with everybody. Um, and sharing yourself, because I think your story is brilliant. I think who you are is brilliant, and really I see the world now and in the future moving towards people like yourself, and being there for themselves, so that the world is a better place. The world is more connected and more aligned with not only themselves and what they're doing, and have that freedom, have that breath of air to be able to do what they love to do, because you don't have to be in the norm, because the norm is the norm because people created it as such. You can
That's
be,
true. That's true.
the abnormal or the weird one, because I've been that many times. I mean, if you're in the weird group, that's, you have
Yeah.
fly
Love
your
it.
flag high, as I like to say.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you so much for being here, for showing up for everybody. You didn't have to, but you did. And it's just such a pleasure for me. And I want to thank everyone who stayed around, who listened, who got it. Watch it again, watch all these numerous times, because I definitely watch them numerous times and get different things for myself, for my own life, because I'm playing big. Anyone that wants to play big, watch all of these, and reach out. First 3 gets those 30-minute sessions, and then the first one gets the book. And and you have the opportunity to live an even bigger life. So thank you for being a part of the Profitable Leader. I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on. It was a real pleasure. Thanks for the question and giving me a space to share my story. I appreciate that.
For sure. Yeah, of course. So check him out, follow him online, wherever you can. Learn and grow, and keep believing in yourself. You are the difference. You are the magic in the world. The world needs whatever you have, whatever you feel inspired by. Do that. And if you can't figure it out, go connect with someone like us. And then also watch the other interviews that we're doing. They're actually, no one overlaps, which is except we overlap in regard to our commitment to you, our commitment to the world. And we've all been through our stories where we can share how we got to the points where we are and how we're going big. So come along with us, and you'll enjoy. So thank you so much, Tayo. I really, really appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone for being here, and have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys soon.